Make sure your child can live life to the fullest. Apply for a Satacor Life Child Protector Critical Illness Plan today. The time by Satacor Life is
7 o'clock, folks, on the family station Love 101. It's time for the Morning Watch with host Stokely Marshall.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM, Facebook, and YouTube Live in the main watch. Why? A class action lawsuit against the JPS. And in the second watch, high-rise buildings or high-rise housing for Central Kingston, the pros and cons. For our Facebook question, we ask, what do you think about high-rise housing solutions in Central Kingston? Share your responses on our Facebook or YouTube Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your comments later on the program, but first, here's our quote.
This morning's I quote, "You never regret being kind," Nicole Shepherd.
Oh, Shivani, sounds like a really, really nice I quote. You never regret being kind. Indeed. Shivani, how much kindness are you going to dispense today? Let's give it all away, Shivani. You be kind today, Shivani.
I try my best.
I said, and then watch, we'll go out this break.
Yes, strong man, integrity man, I am a man. Imagine a show filled with only proud male graduates. Well, you imagined it. Now it's time to be a part of the audience. So tune in this Wednesday, October 13 at 5:30 p.m. inside the mailbox for the male alumni. Breaking gender inequality in higher education. We are talking about breaking stereotypes about men in education, overcoming university pressure as a man, mental health, and so much more. That's the mailbox, the program designed for men, with guests who are men, hosted by men. And it happens this Wednesday, October 13 at 5:30 p.m. with our male graduates right here on the family station, Love 101.
Shake and go with true shake. Shake and go. Grab a true shake and go. When me have to put in the work, but I'm moving slow. Grab a true shake and go. School time and not good time. Office study hard, brain full time. Grab a true shake and go. When we up in the gym, we have to stay healthy and fit. Grab a true shake and go. Shake and go with True Shake. Packed with 9 grams of protein, 24 key vitamins and minerals to keep you going. Grab a true shake and go.
Munchie!
Yes, Boss Oliver?
I'm heading out now. Straight to Cars Auto Montego Bay.
The entire Jamaica is heading to Cars Auto.
About variety. Aye, there. And the vehicle them clean as a whistle and the price right. A two of them say good quality, best price.
Cars Auto.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. We are in the main watch now, paying customers, those who pay their bills, to the Jamaica Public Service Company are said to be on a firm footing if they were to decide to file a class action lawsuit against the Jamaica Public Service Company. And the JPS, as we typically call the Jamaica Public Service Company, is trying to combat electricity theft. And the paying customers are just trying to live their daily lives without interruption. And is there a question of who has more rights? Are the good suffering for the bad? Or is that what would end up happening if the JPS were to terminate the electricity to an entire community, for example, because a significant number of persons in that community are using electricity that they have not paid for? We have online this morning to discuss this very important topic. Member of Parliament, Philip Hallwell. He is the opposition spokesman on energy. Good day, Mr. Hallwell. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Good morning to you and to your listeners. Good to be back on.
Always great having you, sir. And first of all, I just want to, as a bit of a background, so to speak, it is an open secret. It's an open secret that it is quite typical for many Jamaicans, not only in certain communities across the length and breadth of the island, not only residential but commercial customers are known to be using electricity services that they are not paying for. They find ways of attaching wires and other relevant apparatus to the JPS grid, and they're using electricity that they are not paying for, which is not right. Put that out there, it's not correct. However, sometimes the Jamaica Public Service Company has challenges in isolating, for the purposes of disconnection, those persons who are committing the breaches. And in the circumstances, it has been indicated that there have been moves on the part of the company to shut down the service to a particular section of a community, for example, just for example's sake. And it has the effect of causing those customers who are paying to lose service. So, Mr. Paul, this class action lawsuit which is being contemplated, tell us a little bit about that, because from the perspective of the service provider, what are they left to do in cases where they are having challenges isolating and separating the wrongdoers and as it were, taking action directly against them? Tell us from your angle, how you see this matter.
Okay, and I think you have done very well in contextualizing the issues that are involved. And there are two very important issues. One, which goes to the heart of a socio-economic problem that we've been faced with for many years. And in fact, it's a phenomenon in many third world countries, that of electricity theft. And then the second issue being the good have to pay for the bad. And in that regard, we are aware of two clear issues where the good seem to be suffering. The first one, which is one we are proposing for some type of class action, is where persons who pay their electricity bill are suffering at the hands of the JPS for having the entire community electricity terminated because of other people who are stealing. And that is one major issue which is current now. And then related to that is the long-standing issue of legitimate customers having to pay in the amount of 17% for those persons who steal electricity. And I think in both cases there are some legal considerations. But can I just deal with the issue of electricity theft first of all? Because I think it is really unfair to the company just to point to them for corrective measures. I think the government has to play a role, and the company has to support that role. Now, in relation to the role of the government, I remember that it being such a pervasive practice. In 2015, when we incorporated a new law to deal with electricity, we imposed stiff penalties for electricity theft, and especially because we are also aware that it's not only poor people who are stealing, but some wealthy people too were also engaged in the practice. So we impose fines of up to $5 million for electricity theft and up to 3 years imprisonment in parish courts. So those penalties are there, and they're quite severe. I need to see what has happened in terms of how those matters have been prosecuted, if there is vigilance and so on. And we need to get an update from both the JPSCO and the OUR on that. So we did that. But I've also recently proposed a set of measures that would, I believe, over time, relieve the JPSCO of the 200,000 households that now steal electricity by the government establishing photovoltaic solar, small units, individualized units on people's homes that will enable them to generate enough electricity that they need, and with added battery capacity to store some of that so that they can have it at nighttime. The cost will be significant, but it can be funded out of the hedge fund tax that the government is now unconscionably extracting from consumers because there's no hedge fund in place. And this can all be done over a 4 to 5 year period. So I think we have to approach the discussion from that standpoint, that there are solutions and we cannot ignore the problem. But going back now to those persons who are legitimate payers of the electricity bill, yes, I do believe that a class action is one that should be pursued, and there are a number of persons who are in dialogue about that, especially because of the recent practice of communities being terminated, even though you have legitimate paying customers in these communities. There are legislation that provide protection to our consumers. I remember when we did the Fair Competition Act, which has consumer protection measures, we ensured that there was a private right of action for individuals and not just for the Fair Trading Commission. And similarly, when we did the Consumer Protection Law, it is not only the Consumer Affairs Commission that can pursue action, but there's also a personal right of action for consumers to address or to get redress from companies that are in breach of certain fundamental tenets. For example, there are provisions in the Consumer Protection Act that prescribe against unfair contract terms. And I think it is time and timely that the courts have a look at some of these contracts that we sign with JPS, contracts where you can't negotiate because of the position of the company. I think it's important that those things be looked at and for the courts to give their specific interpretation to them.
You know, Mr. Paulwell, whilst a lot of what you said is so important, and we're almost upon a break already, but I want to raise this issue. Focusing on the class action suit, if it is in fact filed. An issue that I suspect might arise is, are some of these litigants facilitating the stealing of electricity by some of their neighbors by themselves supplying them with the power? It is an open secret that in many of these communities that we're speaking of, someone might not necessarily be stealing electricity directly from the power line, but they are getting light from a neighbor and paying the neighbor. Yes, which is another form of abstraction or stealing, arguably. But we are upon a break. After the break, we'll return. Stay with us, listeners. We'll be right back on the morning.
Between 2015 and 2020, there were 74,455 reports of child abuse in Jamaica. Report child abuse. Call 211.
The time brought to you by Child Protection Services is
7:16.
Mommy, when am I going back to school?
When enough people get vaccinated, everyone can go back to school.
You got vaccinated?
Yes, love. And guess what you got? A Sagicor Bank Star Savers account.
Parents, send us a copy of your vaccination card and we'll open a Sagicor Bank Star Savers account for your child, valued at $5,000. And 3 lucky Star Savers will win a learning corner, plus 3 cash prizes of $150,000.
Thanks, Mommy and Sagicor Bank.
Vaccine win. Visit sagicor.com to learn more. Valid until October 29. Conditions apply.
Shake and go with true shake. Shake and go. Grab a true shake and go. When me have to put in the work, but I'm moving slow. Grab a true shake and go. School time and not joke time. Office study hard, brain full time. Grab a true shake and go. When we up in the gym, we have to stay healthy and fit. Grab a true shake and go. Shake and go with true shake. Packed with 9 grams of protein, 24 key vitamins and minerals to keep you going. Grab a true shake and go.
Munchie!
Yes, Boss
I'm heading out now. Straight to Cars Auto a Montego Bay.
The entire Jamaica is heading to Cars Auto.
About variety, aye. And the vehicle them clean as a whistle and the price right. A two where them say good quality, best price.
Cars Auto.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokely Martin. We are in the main watch. The topic is why a class action lawsuit against the JPS, the Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, and our guest for this segment, we have Member of Parliament, Philip Caldwell. He's the opposition spokesman on energy. Thanks for remaining with us, Mr. Caldwell. And I might also mention that we were, in fact, attempting to have a member of any community across the length and breadth of Jamaica who would be willing to come on to speak to some of these realities in these communities as it relates to electricity usage, or have they ever been inconvenienced if the company, for example, that terminated service in any relevant community or section of a community where they were in fact a paying customer and were deprived of service. But unfortunately, we were not any of those persons on today, perhaps shortly in the future. But Mr. Paulo, just before the break, I raised the issue with you, an issue that could come up in litigation in a class action lawsuit. Are any of these litigants, or any residents in any relevant community, for argument's sake, persons who may not themselves be taking service directly from the landlord, paying for it, paying the company, but they are in fact facilitating others getting the service, either without paying for it by taking it directly from them as a consumer, or that resident or that resident of the community might be selling electricity, which they really are not supposed to be doing, to others in the community who are not, in fact, paying the JPS. It's a well-known fact that these things happen in communities. Any comments on that, sir?
Yes, well, both cases that you have cited would mean a breach of the law that I described earlier, because it would be facilitating the illegal extraction of electricity. The JPSCO does have a monopoly right in terms of the transmission and distribution of electricity. So for somebody to facilitate another person utilizing his connections, his system, as you have described it, to to connect to somebody else's home would be a breach. But so that is quite clear. You can't go and seek equity without clean hands, and such a litigant would not be able to succeed. However, we were told, and I'm not too sure what the situation is, but that the JPSCO was going to be introducing technology. It's called the RAMI system, that would make the possibility of these so-called throw-ups to be almost impossible. We're also told, and it was mandated, that with the implementation of a smart grid, there will be easier detection of illegal connections on the JPSCO's facility. So I have to ask the question, where are we with that project to establish a smart grid? Where are we with the investment that is necessary for that RAMI system to go in that would pretty much totally prevent illegal connection, save and except for the facilitation that you have just described by individual customers, allowing people to connect to their own system. So the JPS has some questions to answer. We believe that over time it is preventable. That is illegal connection in the form that we know it, in the very rudimentary way that people are able to throw up lines. There are people who extract electricity using more sophisticated means, and even that should be able to be detected when you implement a smart grid. All right, so those are things that should have been happening. We don't know what has happened to those projects, but again, I want to take you to the proposal that I have made recently, where through solar, you'll be able to solve not one problem, but 2 or 3 problems. That is, you'll be able to cut the use of fossil fuel, because those who are stealing electricity now steal from the grid. And of course, the cost of fuel has grown tremendously. So you'll be able to cut that 200,000 people off the grid by just that mean. But you also will be able to lower the price of electricity to the customer. And then, of course, those persons who are poor, who can't afford it, will have electricity, which is really becoming almost a right in this day and age of increased technology and so on.
Mr. Paul, I don't want to go too much off topic, but you raised a very key point a while ago about solar energy. In other words, other sources of energy. But before I go there a bit, can you help the listeners to understand what next, if anything, might happen or occur in relation to a possible class action lawsuit? When might such a suit be filed? And speak to us from your angle the prospects of success that you are seeing for such a suit. When might such a suit be filed, sir?
Yes, well, the term class action is one that is borrowed of the U.S. system. Our civil procedure code doesn't specifically define class action, but there can be a representative type of action that a group of litigants can bring. They will have to be identifiable and signed to the litigation. There are persons who I'm aware are aggrieved by what has happened, and I think they are now getting.
Is it just one community or more than one community? Is it just one community or more than one?
Yes, I think the discussion is across 2 or so communities. So people are actively looking at that. They're also actively awaiting the OUR's pronouncement on the matter, because
if I could interject here, would it be a 2022 lawsuit, or still?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing it. Is that again?
Would it be a 2022 lawsuit? Is it possible still for 2021? when is it likely to be filed, if at all?
No, it's quite possible for 2021. One of the things that I believe will determine the pace is the pronouncement by the OUR on the matter. That is important. And also, what are some of the remedies that the OUR will recommend?
Okay, so we await that possible lawsuit, which might be sometime in 2021. Now, the prospects of success, as you are indicating, well, I'm asking you about the prospects because a recent Gleaner article here, October the 7th, 2021, the headline actually says, successful class action suit against JPS quite possible. Clearly, there are things that you can't outline to us, but can you, in fact, I don't know if you have instructions on the matter as an attorney, but you are speaking this morning as opposition spokesperson in terms of energy. Can you indicate to us why you think quite possible or likely to be successful, if those words can be used, would in fact be correct to use?
Yes, but I do believe that it is quite possible. You're quite right. I haven't been instructed on the matter as yet. We are having discussions, but I think the law is in the favor of the consumers. And recently we have seen the courts adopting a far more liberal attitude towards the protection of people's rights. As I mentioned before, we have had this law, the Consumer Protection Act, which has not really been tested in the court as yet. But there are some very important provisions in the law. One of the things that we inserted in the law were some provisions out of the UK unfair contracts terms. And I think they are very important and fundamental protection for consumers that need to be, I think, brought before the court. So, for example, there are terms in agreement with the JPS consumers that I think the courts could adjudicate on, and for those terms to be deemed void or unenforceable because there were no negotiations in those arrangements. You just take it or leave it.
They were just sort of imposed.
Imposition. And we see that in so many standard form contracts that people enter every day, that consumers enter into every day with businesses. You take it or leave it.
I know I'm interjecting here, but also because time is, we have to be monitoring the time in terms of when the program ended this morning for this segment. But also because we're dealing with a monopoly. I think that's where you're headed to as well.
Yes, of course. Monopolists do have significantly more power than an environment where you have competition. So yes, the Fair Competition Act also provides significant consumer protection against businesses that are dominant, not only monopolies, but businesses that are dominant in a certain marketplace.
Understood.
Are available to consumers.
I want to quickly move to this area, although it's not the centerpiece of the interview today. A part of the reason, in my view, why we're even having this discussion is because we're relying so much on electricity. You are the spokesperson for energy, not the spokesperson for electricity. In other words, you're looking at energy as a whole. Why is it that in a tropical country like Jamaica, we rely so much on electricity when we could have from long ago been relying more on solar energy? We have the sun right through the year. Any comments on that before we wrap, sir?
Yeah, it's misplaced priority. I'm very pleased that in 2013, we as the then government embarked on an ambitious program to transform our energy use, to bring in far more renewable power. We established the Wigton Wind Farm, because we do have wind as well. There is another wind farm that was established in Malvern and St. Elizabeth. And of course, we established then the single largest solar plant in Jamaica, Content in Clarendon. We haven't seen that level of ambition since 2016 to incorporate far greater use of, say, solar. We also enabled private use of solar by way of net billing arrangements. So over 700 licenses were issued to individuals to establish solar facilities, and they could sell the additional capacity to the JPS. We haven't seen that project being given the same type of focus and commitment by the government. It's about ways.
I will ask you to pause there only because of time, but I think we can agree more and none on that. In the future, let's see what further comes of the increased use of alternative forms of energy, such as solar. I want to thank you, former Minister Philip Paulwell, Member of Parliament, Opposition spokesperson on energy, and not a minister, certainly not a minister at this time, Mr. Paulwell. I suppose in the future you're hoping to become a minister again, sir, but not this time. And thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for your thoughts. I want to thank you for your contributions. We do appreciate all that you have said, sir.
Okay, all the rest.
We'll be right back on the Morning Watch. Stay with us.
Now with no processing fees and no down payment, it's time to open the door to your own sweet home. The time by JN Bank is
7:31.
Shake and go with true shake. Shake and go. Grab a true shake and go. When me have to put in the work, but I'm moving slow. Grab a true shake and go. School time and not joke time. Have to study hard, brain full time. Grab a true shake and go. When we up in the gym, we have to stay healthy and fit. Grab a true shake and go. Shake and go with True Shake. Packed with 9 grams of protein, 24 key vitamins and minerals to keep you going. Grab a true shake and go.
Hello.
Hello?
Goodbye.
Goodbye? What are you doing?
I'm saying hello to peace of mind and goodbye to worry.
Oh, I'd like to say that too.
Well, with Guardian Life's new ultimate provider, you can secure your medical expenses in the event of critical illness ahead of time and benefit from their investment portfolio too.
Wow, so it's hello peace of mind.
And goodbye worry with Guardian Life's new ultimate provider. For more information, contact 888-367-5433 or talk to one of our representatives. Guardian Life. Live secure. Live easy.
There is an easy way for insurance coverage today with no line in your way. All you have to say is
Genac.com. Everything you have is everything you have. So keep your assets covered and save 10% off your insurance when you renew by visiting Genac.com. You don't need to go into a branch. You can do just about everything online at genac.com. Remember, smart insurance saves. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So future-proof everything.
insurance on the go. Trust the brand that you know.
genac.com.
All you have to say is Genac.com.
General Accident Insurance Company. Future-proofing tomorrow.
Digicel are going with a whole heap of something. Like the 7 gigabytes of YouTube data you know get when you activate a 7-day Digicel Prime bundle. And a whole heap more any-use data. Moving from 6 to 8 gigabytes. Plus you get 49 gigabytes to enjoy more sports, music and movies. With Digicel apps, a really whole heap of something that for the same price. Only $850. Activate your 7-day Prime bundle in the My Digicel app today. Digicel, better together.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm Stokely Marshall. Let's take a look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And we have in the both major daily newspapers this morning and other happenings, we have in the Gleaner, latest news, 21 questions for the Transport Minister about the AAJ saga, and that is the Transport Minister, Robert Montague. And in terms of AAJ, reference is being made to the Airports Authority of Jamaica. In terms of an update, Buju Banton's or Buju's daughter, Abigail Myrie, rejects claim she is missing. Buju's daughter, Abigail Myrie, rejects claim she is missing. We now turn to the Observer. We have here among the many stories, Clarendon man charged with housebreaking. And that one which would be of concern of many persons in terms of the weather. Prepare for increased rainfall, Met Service says. The Meteorological Service, Met Service, is warning Jamaicans to prepare for increased rainfall over the next 2 days. Coming up next, we'll replay some of the feedback from our Facebook and WhatsApp question, which is, what do you think about high-rise housing solutions in Central Kingston? If you haven't done so yet, leave your responses on our Facebook or YouTube. Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag Good Morning.
There is an easy way for insurance coverage today with no line in your way. All you have to say is
Genac.com. Everything you have is everything you have. So keep your assets covered and save 10% off your insurance when you renew by visiting Genac.com. You don't need to go into a branch. You can do just about everything online at genac.com. Remember, smart insurance saves. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So future-proof everything.
insurance on the go. Trust the brand that you know.
genac.com.
All you have to say is Genac.com.
General Accident Insurance Company. Future-proofing tomorrow.
I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man, I am a man. Imagine a show filled with only proud male graduates. Well, you imagined it. Now it's time to be a part of the audience. So tune in this Wednesday, October 13 at 5:30 p.m. inside the mailbox for the male alumni, breaking gender inequality in higher education. We are talking about breaking stereotypes about men in education, overcoming university pressure as a man, mental health, and so much more. That's the mailbox, the program designed for men, with guests who are men, hosted by men. And it happens this Wednesday, October 13 at 5:30 p.m. with our male graduates right here on the family station, Love 101.
This is a special announcement from Love 101 and Love Television. Our general offices will be closed to the public on Heroes Day, Monday, October 18, and will reopen on Tuesday, October 19 at 8:30 a.m. Programs and commercials for the period Friday, October 15 through to Tuesday, October 19 should be submitted by 12 noon on Thursday, October 14, and obituaries and notices by 1:30 p.m. on the same day to ensure scheduling for broadcast. Love 101 and Love TV wish for you and yours a peaceful and reflective Heroes Day. On Saturday, October 16, Love 101 will journey to where hospitality is at its best. We will take a stop at the Glen Rock Hotel in cool Mandeville. We will hear all that the Glen Rock Hotel has to offer and show you why it's a great place to get away, to relax, refocus, and regroup. It's our special stop on a Saturday morning, Saturday, October 16 at 11 a.m. We're live on the family station, Love 101.
I'm in love him forever, Jesus, I'm his savior, so we love him.
Come back to the morning. I'm your host, Stokely Marshall. Let us take a look to see whether any of our listeners have any comments on social media. Anything so far, Siobhan, or not as yet?
Not as yet, Stokely.
Not as yet. Not as yet. Okay. Well, we wait to hear what those comments might be, if any. And violence-plagued Central Kingston, as we move right into the second watch, violence-plagued Central Kingston is to have high-rise housing solutions soon. Solutions to the various challenges with residential housing that they have had in the area. What are the pros and cons of such a development? We have online to discuss this today Professor Carol Archer. Professor of Urban and Regional Planning at the University of Technology, Jamaica, and former Dean of the Faculty of the Built Environment at that institution. Good day, Professor Archer. How are you today?
I am well, Stokely. Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, great. And I will declare my interest. I am
a member of the family.
I'm a member of the family. The family, firstly, and the faculty of that wonderful department, Faculty of Built Environment at University of Technology, Jamaica. I'm proud to be so. Professor Archer, good to have you on. And, you know, Professor, when I looked at this whole matter of Central Kingston and the proposal to have the housing solutions, you know, I was split in two. On the one hand, I'm happy to see the development. But as someone from a legal angle and being exposed to other persons in the faculty at UTech, Professor Archer, most notably yourself, madam, and the many other persons there, and knowing the challenges that can arise in these things, and even looking at the psychosocial side, a number of things ran through my mind. So it's not to tear down the initiative or to challenge the initiative as if it is unworkable, but in my view, is to look to see how, if this is in fact done, how to make it work. But, you know, Professor Archer, I don't want to put any words in your mouth. Professor Archer, what strikes you in relation to the proposal for these high-rise housing solutions in that part of Kingston? Any opening comments you want to do with us, first of all?
Right. Well, I read the article as you did. I wasn't clear on whether they were talking about high-rise 4-story walk-ups or high-rise, 15, 20 stories. Right? That I did not get a clear sense as to what, because in the literature you have mid-story high-rise 4 to 5 that in some situation in the area that they're talking about is doable. In other situations, it is not. When is it doable? When you're talking about 4-story walk-ups, where the average person would have no problem climbing those, 2 to 3 stories, much like what we have in a typical office building. So in event of electrical blackout or so, you wouldn't have a problem going up and down from your place of residence. So the energy consumption is low. Most above that, based on building codes and other regulations, you would have to put in an elevator. Elevator is an energy intensive machine, meaning that you need electricity to regularly maintain to facilitate the resident. I wouldn't at this time recommend that kind of construction, particularly when we are looking at providing housing solutions for low income. The residents, most of the residents in that section of Kingston are low income residents, meaning that you wouldn't put in an apartment building.
Can I say, Professor, that we did make efforts to have the Member of Parliament online today, as well as the Mayor. Unfortunately, we have neither of them. So we are not hearing their side. But I do agree, Professor, we need further and better particulars as to the nature of what they mean by high rise. And I totally understand the concern about the need to go about 3 floors.
The other thing, too, what we have to consider, the housing stock, and I'm very familiar, I've worked extensively in the Almond Towns, Ray Town, and so forth. The housing stock is fair to good for the most part. What has happened in those communities the housing stocks had not been properly maintained. So you have persons who are the elderly, because many of them would have worked as civil servants, worked in the commercial sector in downtown Kingston, and they have aged out. There's no provision for them to get housing loans or grants to upgrade, to maintain the housing stock. Like anything else, you need to maintain, you need to repair. And once, in our discipline, we talk about the broken window syndrome. So once you have a residential unit and it cannot be maintained, 1, 2, 3 on the blocks, it's almost like a domino effect. What would perhaps would have worked better is if facilities could be made to be provided for the homeowners or the renters to be able to upgrade so that you don't have this constant decaying of those facilities.
Professor, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought because I want to drill into that some more after the break. Stay with us. This is We'll be right back with the Morning Watch.
This is Love 101, 746.
Reverend Dr. George Mulreen.
And I am Bishop Christine Gooden-Bengushe.
And we are from the
Jamaica Methodist District. And we have been vaccinated.
For the COVID war that we're in, we will space ourselves well to win. And in love we'll fight cool and clean, armed with masks and with the vaccine. The vaccine's a blessing at least, and it's not the mark of the beast. As a symbol it shows we care for all with whom on this earth we share. For the COVID war that we're in, we will space ourselves well to win. And in love we'll fight cool and clean, armed with mask and with the vaccine.
There is an easy way for insurance coverage today with no line in your way. All you have to say is
Genac.com. Everything you have is everything you have. So keep your assets covered and save 10% off your insurance when you renew by visiting Genac.com. You don't need to go into a branch. You can do just about everything online at genac.com. Remember, smart insurance saves. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So future-proof everything.
insurance on the go. Trust the brand that you know.
Genac.com.
All you have to say is Genac.com.
General Accident Insurance Company. Future-proofing tomorrow.
Between 2015 and 2020, there were 74,455 reports of child abuse in Jamaica. January to June 2021, 1,203 reports of sexual abuse, 1,465 reports of physical abuse, 2,528 reports of neglect. Report child abuse. Call 211.
I am Elaine Thompson here, and I work hard to deliver winning performance just like Flow. Working hard to deliver fiber-fast performance in your home and savings on your phone.
Elevate your home internet with Flow Fiberfast technology, and you can unlock 50% savings off your mobile plan every month. Simply join your mobile with your home internet. No deposit, no contract, and a predictable mobile bill. Get winning performance that saves. Visit discoverflow.co or your nearest Flow store to sign up today. Conditions apply.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&B Bank will help you find a way.
When it comes to paychecks, we're not always happy with what we see. We can change that by adding strategic investments that pay us passive income at regular intervals. Salaries are the most labor-intensive way to make money. Becoming a business owner can free up time and add more money, but it still involves labor. Investment money is a gold standard, paying dividends, rent, and other payouts from smart investments without lifting a finger.
Visit barita.com/opportunities for more growth coach insights.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Marshall. Thanks for staying with us. We are in the second watch, and we're having a conversation with Professor Carol Archer, Professor of Urban and Regional Planning at the University of Technology, Jamaica, and also the former Dean of the Faculty of the Built Environment at that institution. And we're having a very important conversation this morning. We're looking at the whole matter of high-rise housing for Central Kingston, the pros and the cons. And Professor Archer, you made a very valuable point just before the break, madam, in relation to, well, you never said it directly, but I am drawing the inference that perhaps what could have been done, rather than simply place high-rise housing in some of these communities, is help the residents to upgrade what they have. Is that what you meant, or is that what you meant, Professor Archer, or are you saying that in addition to the
absolutely
upgrade?
Yes, that's exactly where I was going, because what we have seen over the last, I would say, 10 years or so, the costs of housing units at this point is becoming prohibitive for low-income individuals. And unless the state is prepared to heavily subsidize these units for low-income individuals, it is going to be problematic to be able to provide, whether you're talking about high-rise or, new units for low income. And that's a danger that we have to guard against. Again, we have seen it coming out of research in developed and developing countries. We have this whole notion of gentrification. And gentrification is pretty much displacing low-income individuals in communities where they have established their lives and livelihoods. And we have to guard against that, because what you will have is the case that is now happening across Canada and the US, the Silicon Valleys, where most of the population, especially those involved in the in low-paying jobs, they are displaced from the communities, and you have the persons who are employed in Silicon Valley taking up the housing solutions in those areas and completely displacing low-income individuals. The type of housing solution that would work best for communities such as Central Kingston is what is referred to as mixed income, in that you provide units that are affordable to the residents, the local residents, and also units that you would be able to attract the young professionals, the young family type of situation. And so you allow communities to thrive. You allow communities to develop and grow, and you create a safer community in that sense. But when you have to displace persons, and when we say displace, we're not talking necessarily about forcefully displaced, but just the economic displacement of persons, the social displacement, that allows for inherent conflict. And you want a society that is inclusive. We sing about the Sustainable Development Goals. And here we're talking about Goal 11, safe, inclusive, resilient cities. Now, because we are a small island developing state, we are prone to climate change. We don't want to contribute to exacerbate the impacts such as greenhouse gases, which exacerbate climate change. And that when you build and pave over roadways and create concrete jungles, that's what you are contributing to. You don't want to create housing solutions that are susceptible to frequency in hurricane or earthquake. I mean, yes, I've witnessed housing solution in places like China and Japan, but the cost to build those units are, quite capital intensive, and we need to be very clear as a society how and by what means we're going to provide that kind of housing solution, or do we improve on the existing housing solutions that we have? I think we need to do a combination of both.
In other words, you have outlined quite a lot of the cons or the disadvantages in a way. However, I suppose for many people, the advantage for them is that they get somewhere to live that they think is better. Any other advantages that you can think of that?
Well, you see, the thing is, when you look, and you have to think about development in a very holistic way. It is not just, and especially if you're looking at it from a vantage point of urban renewal, it has to be a very comprehensive approach. So it's not just Central Kingston, development of Central Kingston, because Central Kingston does not exist in and of itself. Central Kingston is tied to downtown Kingston, it is tied to Crossroads, it is tied to Western Kingston, and elsewhere within Jamaica and the larger Caribbean. Downtown Kingston is a major hub. Yes?
Yes.
So
yes.
How do we develop Central Kingston, the downtown Kingston area, to respond to development here in Jamaica, here in the Caribbean, and the wider global society? I think that's and so just looking at high rise is not the solution right now. I think it has to be comprehensive, and I dare say that we need to have more built environment professionals at the table. I mean, when if you were to look at the Singapore story, which we seem to laud, and thankfully I've had the experience visiting and experience in Singapore. They are where they are because they brought in the professionals, the technical experts to the table and asked for guidance. And it wasn't just to, okay, we are going to be like the rest of the world. It is what would work best for the people of Singapore. And I think that's the central question that needs to be put on the table. What would work best for the people of Central Kingston, Jamaica, and the rest of the world?
You know, Professor Archer, I am aware that the municipal corporations do have certain qualified persons employed to them who are involved in planning. I think perhaps what needs to happen more is more cross-fertilization with academia, such as at University of Technology Jamaica. I'm not here promoting UTech in that regard per se, but the fact is that that is where lots of the relevant persons who can lend that assistance are. And I think sometimes we run the risk of existing in silos. This is my job, this is my area, and this is all I do. And when we're doing these things, we probably are a little bit tempted to focus on our area only. I don't know if you have any comments on that, Professor Archer.
Well, you know, I pride myself as serving as the People's University, the National University, University of Technology Jamaica. And I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues at the Built Environment. We stand ready to assist our government with national development. We are ready, willing, prepared. We come with extensive experience and expertise. And, you know, we are ready, we are willing. We have worked and we will continue to work with our decision makers. We were very much involved in the preparation of the housing policy and other such policy framework that we've been asked to participate in from time to time. I would love to see it done in a more proactive way, so we stand willing and ready to serve. And I thank you to put that on the table because, yes, the academia is not just about, you know, studying and writing scholarly papers. We also need to apply the theories and the practices that we would impart to our students. And so I think this is a welcome opportunity for us to do that as we talk about the development of our towns and cities.
I have to leave it there this morning, Professor Archer, because I think we're totally out of time. But I want to thank you for your time and your contributions and the input. Extremely invaluable, Professor Archer. Thank you so much. I want to thank you all listeners for being with us. Oh, most definitely, Professor, most definitely. Thank you, all listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow to look at other topical and controversial issues. And visit the Love 101 FM YouTube channel and Facebook for this page. And for this and other Love 101 FM programs, listen to the Morning Watch on our Love 101 app. Download it today and stay connected to us at the family station, Love 101 FM, the #1 gospel station in Jamaica. Thanks to producer Kathy Gale and to our guests. I am Stokely Marshall, handing back to Love in the Morning with Siobhan and Blair. Stay safe.
Some sweet thing or sorrow.